Welcome everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle sponsored every Saturday by Still and Living Center. We always take up a theme for the week that comes from our Still and Living Center almanac. And we read, as Diana just did, the quote from the back cover of the almanac that pulls this theme of light on the path for 2025 through the year. And today's theme that comes from that almanac is the idea of true sacrifice. And this seems to me to be one of the lights of humanity, is this ability of human beings, actually, and some animals too, to truly sacrifice. We are very fortunate today to have Carol Ann Dighton with us, who has served as a nurse herself, both in hospital settings and for the Red Cross. And she's going to be focusing her presentation to us on the founder of the American Red Cross, the Civil War nurse, Clara Barton. And I love that in this presentation that Carol Ann is going to be giving, she is going to relate service and selfless service to true sacrifice. I'm going to be doing my best to be sharing her slides for her. So please bear with me as I share those, and then Carol Ann will have you get started.
Yeah, she brings up my slides here. I was having difficulty screen sharing, so this was the best alternative. Uh, Kind of just a real brief bit about me. I have done service for the Red Cross. Um, a lot of this information really fascinated me, so I hope that if you know anything about her, that I'm at least providing you some new information. And yeah, let's just kind of get into it. Claire Barton was known as the angel of the battlefield. And when I looked at the quote for this week in our almanac, the theme of true sacrifice, you give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. That was by Khalil Gibran.
Sorry.
It's okay. I have it open on my side too. I have an almost complete disregard of precedents and a faith in the possibility of something better. Clara Barton. Just for me, that quote really strikes that nerve of being kind of a trailblazer and somebody that really didn't need to listen to status quo to know that there needed to be a change for better humanity. And in a brief little kind of synopsis of the next bit, service is a truly selfless sacrifice. The concept of service, helping others, or contributing to a community has been acknowledged by humans since ancient times, though how it was defined in practice has evolved through culture, religion, and society. We can look back at prehistoric and tribal societies, and you can see the cognition that um, caring collectively can begin to be discerned as a rise of the collective consciousness, where there's an awareness of the good of the whole and the benefit of doing one's own part in that. You can see it move forward into ancient civilization. Really, for me, one of the biggest moving factors of why I did a year of selfless service was because of the time that I spent with Miku Lenentine learning about Kuan Yin and this idea of self compassion and compassion towards others, friend or foe. We can see it progress forward through the Middle Ages, charities tied to salvation, fill the till. In many religions and traditions during the Middle Ages was a very big part of um, your service to God. So coming forward into the birth of modern volunteering into the 19th century, we see the abolitionist movement in the United States and in Europe through the 1800s. Uh, those endeavors relied heavily on volunteers for their causes. You can see that with persons like Florence Nightingale, who was a volunteer nurse that revolutionized medical care during the Crimea War, which is a pivotal part of history that was the founding of the International Red Cross. Clara Barton is also what we see as essentially the birth of modern volunteerism in the Americas. Into the 20th and 21st century, we can see that even branch further into the Peace Corps and the United Nations volunteers of the 1970s. Kind of diving into her early years and where she started her light is that she was actually born on Christmas Day in 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts, very near where a lot of our founding fathers were also in play. In 1854, at the age of 33, she was hired as a clerk for the U.S. Patent Office in D.C., later to be fired on the basis of being a woman, later to be reinstated by President Abraham Lincoln. Considered to be an outlier by a respected society of her time, never marrying, never having children, never fitting societal norms, but achieving things that women of her day and time had not achieved before. In her early involvement in our war efforts, she was living in DC when the Civil War erupted in 1861. She had several um, points in her life while living in Washington, D.C., where she provided unsanctioned aid to people uh, because women were not allowed to be on the front lines. It was considered very taboo at the time. In 1862, her father passed away. At this point in her life, she was 41 years old, and she left the city hospitals to go amongst the soldiers in the field. It was at her actual father's urging, and this was something I found incredibly fascinating, um, that a captain in the Union Army would encourage his only young daughter to enact in um, civil disobedience and something that could have caused her great injury or death. He said to her, "As a daughter of a patriot, seek and comfort the afflicted everywhere. To serve and sacrifice for my country in its peril, and strengthen and comfort the brave men that stood in its defense," was his urgings to her. Under President Lincoln, the War Department gave her permission to bring aid to the front line after seeing how well received it was on her endeavors where it wasn't sanctioned. It's in those posts that she's dubbed the Angel of the Battlefield. On January 1st of 1863, President Lincoln abolished slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation, but it's not tragically until 1865 the war comes to an end. It is estimated to have been responsible for the loss of approximately 600,000 lives. The Civil War ends, and the president at the time, Lincoln, she's appointed to run the Office of Missing Soldiers, where it's estimated that her staff answered 63,000 letters and provided closure to families of over 22,000 deceased soldiers. At the end of our Civil War, she took some time abroad to look after her health. It's at this point she's pushing her mid age, she's 48. But while there, she still can't just let it rest and like take some time to heal. She's got to go put herself on the front line of the Franco-Prussian War to distribute once again aid relief to war victims. During her time in Europe, she learned about the International Committee of the Red Cross, established in Geneva in 1864 by the Geneva Convention. The original Geneva Convention was signed by 12 European nations. The ICRC was formed as a response to the bloodiest battle of the Crimea War, the Battle of Solferino, Italy. The first International Red Cross was founded by Henry Dunant, a Swiss humanitarian, along with three other gentlemen. Their aim was to provide neutral humanitarian aid to soldiers during wartime. It's in her time of visiting these historical places in Europe, she gets the inspiration to bring this um, collective consciousness home to the soldiers of the Americas. The historical milestones that were achieved by the Geneva Convention laid the foundation for modern humanitarian law that we follow at present day. In her post-war efforts and upon her return to the United States in 1870, she began a decade-long campaign to bring a version of the International Red Cross to the Americas. It was not until 1881 that she was successful under President James Garfield. Tragically, President Garfield survived an attempted assassination only to succumb to complications from the gunshot wound 2 months later, before he is able to bring the Red Cross to life. Clara Barton, undeterred, forged on, and it was in 1882, 1 year after the American Red Cross's indoctrination, that President Chester Arthur signed the Geneva Convention of 1864. On May 2nd, 1881, Clara Barton opened the doors to the first American Red Cross site. I found this next picture just to be so capturing of the time. When I revisited her history of what were some important events that occurred that were pivotal in the Red Cross's growth and the ability to provide services even beyond wartime, but in times of disaster. In 1885, 1889, Johnstown flood of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, where more than 400 children died, killing more than 2,200 people in total. Some of these early Red Cross buildings that you can see through these photos um, are still the original site of where these Red Cross buildings are today. The Spanish American War, another instance of where Clara Barton, age 78 at this point, helps to provide aid to 300 Americans or sorry, helps provide aid to Americans, and this is a war where 3,000 American lives were lost, majority attributed to disease rather than combat. Some of these photos were really neat. They're actually taken in Havana because this is when the Cubans were involved in the Spanish American War. In 1900, the Galveston hurricane came through. Clara Barton, at this point, 79. Um, this hurricane estimated to kill between 6,000 and 12,000 people and is still on record to be the deadliest natural disaster in the US history. In her later years, she retired from president of the Red Cross at the age of 82. It seemed through my research that it might have been more under administration. Um, Pushing her out versus and it seemed like an age gender discrimination versus a lack of competency. And on April 12th, 1912, she died in Glen Echo Park, Maryland. And um, if you look at this photo taken to the right, you will notice that there's a copyright on this dated 1898 by Clara Barton. And I found that also interesting that a lady that was one of the first women to work in US government worked in the patent office, and she also was one of the first women to have photo copyright. Um, and then just these next couple pictures are of her at 80, and it just fascinates me just how she looks a little older, but not real much changed. The residence that she lived in Glen Echo Park, Maryland, is still standing, still preserved, and was an original Red Cross chapter headquarter. I do know this building to still be standing. Um, it just wouldn't let me link over from the Red Cross page due to copyright. So it didn't pull over where it's from, unfortunately, but I thought it was neat that they used to actually take the time to really put the emblem into the artistry of the building. And this is the home at present day. And then I thought it was kind of fun if on the next couple slides, these are just present day adventures. This is me and my team of disaster responders in Sarasota, Florida. We had just come up from Cape Coral, which was literally under 20 feet of water. And I went out to take my dog to not just me be of service, but for her to be of service to others. And in the last little set of pictures, that is my canine service dog. So I thought that would be just kind of a nice way to see the full circle of it, where it's really brought us to today is um, modern day humanitarian work. And I just really am grateful for the time that I've had with them. And we'll see. Could be in my future down the road still. We'll see. And with that, that's kind of what I had learned and wanted to share with you guys. These were things that I didn't know. And um, I was just really inspired after kind of my near death experience to take some time to be of service to others. And yeah, it's kind of what I have.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So much effort and love went into preparing that, Carol Ann, and how wonderful that you've had that personal experience of working for the Red Cross. And there's a story about Carol Ann that went out on Thursday in the Life at the Center letter. And it's under the title Seeking a Champion. She's one of my champions. So yeah, I want to open the floor to any questions or comments that that all of us might have in regard to this idea of true sacrifice. And I want to mention that we are doing this as, you know, here in the month of April, as we're leading up to Easter. I do think that that is relevant. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the theme, the cross. Interesting that right now we're talking about the Red Cross. So that's part of the overall picture within this whole theme for the year of Light on the Path. So I open it up to all of you. Mary.
Aloha, everybody. Mahalo, Carol Ann. Because of what we see now with how immediate news is and everything, it is really heartening to realize that people will step in. They will be there to help others in crisis. It can be a big thing. It can be your neighbor who falls down and you help pick them up. But service, I think, is a very human trait. And like Renee commented, that animals do help each other too. So it's not only a human, it's a living, and plants do it. They help each other. So it's very heartening, and I think we have more helpers than not. Amen.
Amen. I had a question actually for Carol Ann. As you're doing your volunteering with the Red Cross, do you see any kind of generational like tendencies? It looked like the people in the picture are a little bit of an older generation. And I'm just curious if you're the young one, if there are other young people involved.
There, there are. The reason that it is lacking generational depth is primarily people that have long spans of time where they can just up and go from work are people that are retired. And I will say there's a lot of wisdom in that because we are able to pull the National Guard for muscle, but we need the brain power and the infrastructure of what we provide that we can't get from the federal government. Um, one of the and it's a tragic thing that we have this, but one of the things I found out that we service to are mass shootings. We are actually there even before the FBI because we provide solace and aid to the victims and families. And so we have to have a really strong reservoir for trauma, a really strong discernation inwardly of how much we can take and when we can't. Um, because it's a calling, not a job. It's not a paid, endeavor. And ultimately, we enforce looking after um, oneself as part of uh, the tradition. But yeah, it's not very multi-generational because of the fact that it's selfless service. You aren't paid for it, and people that are really able to live in that are students, but they're in school. And so it's like when disaster hits, it has to hit at the right time for them or retired people. But, there's also people like me that are the outliers that the reason I'm kind of the younger outlier in this is that after my attempted overdose, and this is just super brutal, honest about where I've been. I've let Renee share this very publicly with people. Um, when I kind of was coming back into my body, kind of coming back around, I had started coming to satsang, coming to Nia, and those photos were from 2003. And it was after a full year of being in meditation with Miku and doing the Kuan Yin meditation series over and over and over and over again. Not because I didn't get it, but because I felt like I got one little grain of something new each time or just a new experience. And I realized in this idea of compassion that compassion for friend or foe, compassion for people that have wronged you, service to people that have wronged you, service to friend or foe, it kind of was very synonymous to me. And I was like, well, man, I feel like these people that saved my life, that gave me this life energy to have a second chance. And this thing that I kept hearing was if you go back, you have the ability to change the lives of a lot of people for the better. That there was something to like showing up in Renee's class one day and something to the meditation with Miku, but I couldn't quite put it together. And then I woke up one day and I was like, a year of service. I'm in. I'm kind of retired out right now. I'm going to do a year of service where it just was no stop, no start, no end. I was just going to do it until I didn't feel the need anymore. Well, 3 years went by, you know, and it was like, I've just now had to kind of start pulling out of it a little bit, just to reserve some energy for myself. But it was that idea that there were people that saved my life that gave me their energy, that gave me their time, that um, I didn't want to take it for granted. I didn't want that the nurses that saved me to not pay it forward. And so I went into a year of service as a result.
Thank you so much. Diana.
Thank you. It's very inspirational. I can see why she's a role model. And I really appreciate your being honest with your story and your service, and that you really did deeply listen and did the compassion of Kuan Yin. I had two questions actually. Do you still have your dog? And that's one. If your dog, the little dog,
She's a big dog.
oops, they died. You're not moving.
I think you're frozen. There you go.
The
Anne.
big dog. Yeah. I was wondering if you still had your dog, and second, I was wondering, how do you, when you're in the front lines of such catastrophes, how do you keep your self-care and your center amongst that? Because it's easy to get lost with need, and I see people that burn out really because they're giving so much, and we really need that. But what kind of things did you do to re-energize yourself so that you did your self-care?
I think that I did hit burnout, honestly. I think that I went so like teeter-tottered the extreme of, well, I'm just gonna re-up. Like I was deployed and I was deployed for 2 weeks, and then I did 2 more weeks, and then it was like I was there for a month. Um, and because of that, I ended up getting sick and having to come back home on medical. So then I ended up staying stateside in California and doing what I call the 100-mile disaster, any disaster within 100 miles. And California flooded. So it was like it went from one to being here, from one disaster to another. And then I started doing blood bank work, and I had to really drop up my own reins a little bit, because there is selfless service and then there's doing oneself no service. And I really kind of hit that. It took me um getting very mindful in my own movement practice to realize it's okay to say that you've had enough of something. And it's not that I had enough for any other reason than my body's tired. If my body wasn't tired, I would still, but um, in the moments of it, I think that one of the things that, and I didn't share it on this, and now I'm like, oh, I should have. The picture of the group shot of us on assignment in Sarasota, it actually came with a big public New York to Washington DC write up about how my dog and we were providing emotional support to, a deployed team, and it was like sent out, and it was a big moral boost. M- Morality boost is a big part of that self-care when you're in it. It's group morale, it's community, it's um, not isolating yourself when you've seen things that are just out of this world. um, there's kind of that culture, and I think that the Red Cross does it well. You know, I think that when you're a trauma survivor, we don't do it well. I think that they have the foundations and the fundamentals in place, and the group exercises, and um, we went to dinners together, and we did as much stuff as we could as a team, and did it with love, and it wasn't without crying. And it was like, once I told them why I did a year of service, I think my whole team became even stronger in that sense of community, and um, of why we're here and why we should be doing it. So I think that, yeah, just really tapping into community and not isolating. And if you do need to take 5, take the walk. If you do need to cry, it's cool. Like, we've all done it without shame, without judgment. And I think that's the biggest heart that I felt out of working with other humanitarians is a big group of them is a lot of love in one room.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service. You've been breaking up. You freeze on and off, so I'm not sure if it's only mine, but I didn't hear. Do you still have your dog?
I do. She's just not in this room because she can't see you guys. So when I talk, she thinks I'm speaking to her. And so she's ecstatic and running around. So she's a little on timeout at the moment.
Nice. Well, thank you for your service and your
Thank
sharing. It was
you.
really powerful and very inspirational.
Diana, actually, I think you're freezing every once in a while, so you might have less interruption if you take off your video. You might get your
Okay.
audio that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But come on back on whenever you like.
Thank you.
Who else has something for us? I have kind of a question, which why this theme, which I borrowed from the almanac that I use as my inspiration, the Aquarian Almanac from the 1970s and 80s. Why this theme is entitled True Sacrifice? What would non-true sacrifice even be? What is the hallmark of true sacrifice?
Think what was different about serving people before my near-death experience and serving them afterwards, I did it without fear. I knew where I was going to go. I had a message. I had a direction. I just needed to get in the driver's seat and go. It was this idea that I could do it without fear and share that energy and hopefully it be a little contagious and know that if I were to die, that I did it fearlessly, that I did it, you know, open heart all the way, pedal down, no stops. I think that that's the true sacrifice when you don't have the hesitation and that it radiates beyond self. Like you're not just holding it here and showing up to do a job, you're trying to share it
All in.
all in.
Other thoughts?
When you're talking about sacrifice, they talk in the Bible, it says, the people who give from their need are really sacrificing. Those who give from their excess, it's not cutting into their life that much. But those who give when they don't have much to give, and there are lots of people, the homeless people do help, even though they might not have a home, they help those of their fellow homeless people on the street. The quote from the Bible is that I believe Jesus was looking or observing the people that were giving at the temple, and the Pharisees and the wealthy people were giving lots of money, and this one widow, she gave the last 2 pennies or whatever that she had, and Jesus said that she's giving the most, she's giving more than any of the other people because she was giving from her need. Amen.
I remember a sermon, it was probably about the very same thing. It was two men had reached the pearly gates, and this very rich man who had built churches was told, oh, wait, here comes somebody who like gets to go into heaven before you. And it was this poor guy. And the rich guy was like, why does he get to go? I built churches, like I donated so much. And the answer was, well, he gave of his need where you gave of your extra.
Gosh, that's good. Ooh, that's gonna sit with me for a while, you guys, because at the point that I did my Red Cross work, I was literally on Section 8 and receiving Social Security. So it wasn't because I had anything except for my time.
And it's really interesting when we think about all the different kinds of riches and let's say what we have a lot of. And so I can imagine that for someone who has a lot financially, they might only be giving of their financial wealth. However, those who actually show up and give of their time, maybe that is what is a very scarce resource for them.
That's the sacrifice, right? Like it's sacrifice the excess. I'm not going to take it, I'm not going to feel anything from that. And then it's the person that, with the leaster means or the lesser, the lesser means, the sacrifice is true.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't realize I was off of mute, but I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for Carol and Renee. I remember when I had the long COVID, and it was during a time it was just such a hard time, and um, well, first of all, it was just a weird time. But also just coming home from the mainland and sort of feeling out of place here after coming home after 14 years. And everybody being sort of concerned about COVID and getting together and vaccinations and all of this. So, very confusing time. And just Carol and saying, um, hey, um, I came up with this idea that I wanted to be your mentor. It's just like totally out of the blue. and, and I don't know if or she said Renee, or I don't know who said it, like which of you, but just I think during that time period, just kindness. Um, it wasn't anything like medical, because clearly like you weren't medically treating me or anything, but it was just the fact that there was just a kindness, and also with Renee, um, I remember I had extra tickets for my work, which I often do to shows, and I was like, hey, do you want this? And you were like, why don't we go together and I'll come pick you up? um, and so I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm really grateful for that, and just um, talking about service and your dog and things like that, that I think a lot of times, sometimes it's not even anything medical, that the healing can be kindness, and it can be someone cares, and it's someone that you don't even expect. You're like, oh, I don't really know you, but then you know that human kindness exists, and it's a very healing feeling that that I think it just gives you hope because you're like,
Oh,
oh, there's something good. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah. And so I
I
just wanted to
appreciate
share. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. And it's from the um that total strangers to Adele and I at the symphony on Saturday.
Yeah. We had to go see Star Wars.
Yeah, we did.
I
So
wonder too whether there's something about true sacrifice in that we're not there for the ego reward. It seems as though there are times when somebody does sometimes these acts of martyrdom, so they may even give up their lives, and yet it depends on what the motive is, it seems to me, as to whether or not it's what we would really call selfless service or true sacrifice. I mean, if it's done for their own glory afterwards, even if it's, I don't know what scripture might have to say about it, but if it's done solely for the result of them going to heaven, if that's the motive behind it, I don't know whether it actually constitutes true sacrifice. It's a question out there. Let's hear from somebody who hasn't talked yet. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was just thinking, I don't know that I have an answer, but there's a Hawaiian word, kahiao, which is to give with no expectation of return. And so I think it's just a cultural value that we give without like needing to have something in return.
That seems to hit closer to the idea of true sacrifice. Dustin?
Yeah, I love this scripture, one of the quotes from this week, which is, "This is my commandment, that you love each other as I have loved you." And that in itself, right there, is a true test, I think, of sacrifice. To love each other as I have loved you. Not love each other because someone else is showing us love. Greater love hath no one than this, than you would lay down your life for your friends or for another. To me, thank you so much for sharing, Carol. It was really educational to learn about the history. I also realized how much with technology and advancement in today's age and time, we have the ability to reach so many more people with awareness and with information to participate in helping people that are in need. And imagine how challenging it must have been to start what she started at a time when communication, as easy and effortless and accessible it is now, didn't exist. So you got to imagine the obstacles, right, that one would have to face to get something going and to rally a group of people to help. Must incredible effort. When I think of true sacrifice, I would say two things come to mind. One, and Renee, you mentioned one of it, which is no gain, whether for the personal or on behalf of another necessarily, no hidden motive. I think the intention is really, really powerful when it comes to sacrifice. like that self-assessment and being really honest with ourselves, why and how we are going to sacrifice towards something. Then the what is not necessarily so important, which is a great example, Auntie Mary, what you were talking about, that story in the Bible. And I also really believe like true sacrifice requires something of us that is not convenient. It is, because it's not really a sacrifice if it's convenient to do it, you know? Yeah, so those are two of my sort of add-ons on that one.
And that's part of why the gift of time spent with someone can qualify for that, even if you're, not giving anything financially, even if you are giving something financially, but you don't have that gift of time that you're adding. Yeah, it's not convenient. That's a really good qualifier.
So good. Yeah.
Mm.
I think that as we kind of look to the modernization and technology, one of the things that I will say that has just become miraculous is that in these technology advancements, when the Maui fire happened, I was called to service within 8 hours to deploy. I just got a text yesterday from the Red Cross to deploy to Ohio for tornadoes because the Midwest is being hit by torrential downpours and rain. And I just wonder, like, this is no Pony Express stuff. I hit yes or no on my phone, and they know if I'm coming or not. And they can get a head count in a matter of minutes that way of who's going to show up for a plane and who isn't. And it just has really kind of revolutionized the ability for people to have that mass come together.
And it's wonderful. I think that the Red Cross is a nonprofit. I have no doubt that up to this time, probably it has gotten quite a bit of government funding. And yet I also am very confident that there will be people who are going to give of themselves in time and money and effort to make sure that something like this stays active. And maybe even more so without government funding. I have this feeling that this is the kind of thing that people are going to rise to the occasion too. It's very natural to the human spirit. It's something that gives us a sense of purpose and meaning in life when we can do something for others. And so I'm really glad that it's a non-governmental organization. Yeah, Diana.
One of the things that I was teaching hospital chaplain volunteers, and one of the things I would say that if you're giving out of need, this is a different need, but if you're giving out of need, if your heart is filled with love and giving, you're giving out of overflow. If you're diminished and don't have that love or that feeling of self-care, you're giving out of need to be seen, to be acknowledged. And so what the whole idea when I ask about self-care is really important, because we many people give so much. I used to give to everyone else and I didn't give to myself. So learning, how do I give to myself so I can give out of a full heart? And it's not what I don't have, but it's really seeing that I'm taking care of myself so I have the energy, the time, and the ability to give out of a full heart. So if your heart is filled with love, you're giving out of an overflowing of love. If it's empty and you're not loving yourself or taking care of yourself for others, then you're giving out of a need. And I realize it's not my place to judge. I have no idea. I appreciate whoever gives whatever they give. And all we can do is own our own, find our own way of what we're being called, of deeply listening and to divine guidance of what we're supposed to do, whether it be smile at the grocery person or, you know, be kind. And so I think that it's really interesting to keep that spiritual faith and that love of ourselves and self-care is so important. Otherwise we burn out, and we're giving that we need to be seen, we need to be loved, we need to be liked, we have to be seen. So I think it's a whole idea of how do we deeply listen to what God wants us to do and come from that love instead of our own.
Really a huge different perspective on this idea of need, and so valuable. Yeah, it's one of those paradoxes that I just love the deliciousness of, that they can sound the opposites and they're both so true. Great perspective. Laura, I wonder if there's anything you'd like to share with us. I don't want to put you on the spot, and just letting everybody know that available to, or so welcome to share.
Okay, I'm
I think we lost your voice, so we got it for a sec.
does this work now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm sorry. This is my first time on Zoom. I had a great class with Kumu Malia recently, and I just wanted to say I was incredibly moved by what Carol Ann said about moving through trauma, and I was very heartened by what she said about the support that the Red Cross provides, because doing relief work and trauma work is incredibly draining, and especially when you feel like you're doing it by yourself. So this possibility of moving beyond the self and working with other people, I think it changes your feeling of helping, that it becomes a necessary thing rather than anything that involves our ego. So I wanted to thank all of you for organizing this, and especially for Carol Ann for opening her heart to us.
Indeed.
Thank you.
It sounds to me as if when we are doing service collectively, it's like we have a shared cup. Right? We don't have to so much have it come from ourselves. And there may be parts of the work that we can't even, we don't have the skills, or we don't have whatever internal fortitude at that moment is required, but we can continue on in a support position where somebody else kind of comes to the floor, and then they maybe recede back, and then maybe it's our turn again. Yeah. Do you have any personal experience that you want to share about that, Laura?
It's just a general awareness of what the Red Cross does internationally. And I mean, just individual work helping people through trauma many years ago, and sort of seeing how they progress through time and helping them with that journey on a regular basis. So
Thank you
it's
so much.
nothing I can put, it's not like going to Gaza or helping out with the earthquake in Myanmar. But I'm close to a lot of people who are running those missions. So I have to help put them back together again.
And I'm sure it's never convenient. To use Dustin's little qualifier here.
Yes, it's certainly true.
Jonathan, can I ask if there's anything you want to share?
Sure, thank you. I do have a question for Carol Ann. With not only Clara Barton from this beautiful presentation, thank you so much, but also in your own experiences, Carol, do you think that there's such a thing as like a reservoir of caring that one brings to this? Because I'm thinking that Clara Barton, she just like knew what to do. And like when something would happen, she knew where she had to be. And in your case, Carol, you get deployed, but within the context of being there, is there something that kind of comes from your heart that directs you on what to do?
I am a big believer in synchronicity and just kind of listening for the universe to tell me what to do. Because if I sit with something long enough, I'm going to get a sign. Something's going to come to me. And it was it was that way when I came to the conclusion that I needed to do a year of service. It was after a lot of inward talking with myself and discussing things. Um, Intuition, you'll hear nurses talk a lot about intuition. A lot of nurses have very, very good intuition. We can't tell you why we know something, we just do. And I think that intuition is a huge part of um, the unseen phenomena of why we just know things. Because I have definitely had those moments where it's like in diagnostics or in cardiology of not knowing why I knew something, but I knew something. And, blood work would come back or something would come back only to confirm what the intuition provided. That's really all I can say. I don't know that at 39 if I've really found the answer yet.
Thank you. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you very much.
I think we have a really strong through line from several weeks ago when David Sanders gave us a presentation on noetic psychology. And he shared with us this Greek word of nous, which is this aspect of the mind that has the ability to just know. It doesn't have to figure it out. It doesn't have to rationalize it, go through steps. It just is able to shine this light of knowing upon something. And so those instances when we have those moments of true knowing, when we can capture those as you're doing in these circumstances, Carol Ann, are something that I think really are another one of our human prerogatives, our human abilities to really recognize and celebrate. And no doubt those do serve as that part of that reservoir of caring is the reservoir of knowing. Because we also can, at those moments, I think, tap into a greater field of knowing. When you talked about collective consciousness, you may be able to, grab onto something that's known more in the universe, and somehow it's able to then come to you and be received so that it can be put into practice and use. So great question and great answer. Thank you so much. I'm going to tell you about the next couple of weeks, and then I'll ask for somebody to give Carol Ann a vote of thanks. Next week, we have the topic of law and light. It is something that comes up in a beautiful poetic biography by Sir Edwin Arnold on the life of Gautama Buddha. We have a young man who is really incredibly well studied in many, many different religions and philosophies. He spoke to us from the Hindu philosophy, or on the Hindu philosophy last year. His name is Ryan Quirk. He's a college student in Santa Barbara, California. He's going to be talking to us about this idea of law and light, the light of the law from the Buddhist perspective. And on the following Saturday, April 19th, Mary Bird here is going to be talking with us. After a number of us will have gone to Ala Moana Center Stage and danced hula with Kumu Malia. We're going to come back and have a conversation on the symbol of the cross from the Catholic perspective. And more to come. Can I ask for somebody who would like to give Carol Ann a vote of thanks for today?
I can do that.
Thank you, Diana.
I just really appreciated your talk. I didn't know any of that about her and the Red Cross. And just to have your first hand account of being present with the giving of Red Cross and how you interacted, and with so much pain and sorrow and unknown in our world today, the idea of giving and sacrifice seems like it's becoming really upfront for many of us, of how can I be of service and what can I do, and really deeply listening. And you're very inspirational. I really appreciate your service and your sharing your story. It was really, really powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you guys so much for coming too.
Thank you all so much. You're all welcome to stay on for a few minutes if you'd like to. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for your attendance, and thank you very much, Carol Ann.
Aloha.
Aloha. Laura, it was great to have you today. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Thank you for organizing this. It's very kind of you.
Oh, well, it's so inspirational that it always gives back, you know?
Thank you.